Are we episode 14, by the way? I'm making it up every week.
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
I think
episode 17.
Yeah, episode 17, because that's his number.
I think we should do that. Exactly.
All right.
All right. So welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of the Edge Grip podcast. And with us today is world champion and an extremely accomplished racer and human being, Miguel Duhamel. Miguel, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Can you believe we're getting those type of guests?
We are honored and humbled and very, very lucky.
Yeah.
And especially being nobody in the racing world.
What are you talking about, nobody? You're 202 in Fontana, right? That's like record pace?
Yeah, 2 minutes 20, yeah. That doesn't exist anymore.
And Miguel actually lives 10 minutes away from me. So that's why we're doing it over the internet and not at my house.
Yeah. Could have drove, I guess. Using all the internet power.
The internet. Vegas actually has
better.
Make
it convenient.
Vegas has better internet than LA. So that's why.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there'll be a part 2 of this. Then maybe I can go to your house and do it there.
Okay. next to my Bimota.
Perfect. That bike, every time you say Bimota, I always think of Anthony Gobert when they hired him to race that thing and he won in the rain. And that's what my head goes to, of course, being a racer.
I haven't ridden it. I haven't ridden it. It's been in my garage for 2 weeks, and I'm waiting for a DMV appointment. And DMV appointments, as you probably know, are like a month away. So there's still 2 weeks until I go there and register it. But that's the government for it.
The same thing happened with my NSX. I drove it up from Florida, and it didn't have kilometers on it, so I had to go to DMV, and it turned into such a problem. I left my car parked for 10 years. Like I just drove it around the garage, started once in a while. So it's got low mileage. And when I went to sell it on Bring a Trailer, a lot of people like, this is suspicious. There's no way a 97 car's got this low miles on it. I'm like, well, you don't know a racer, because I was almost never there. And when I just started it. And it's long story short, anyway, I sold it, and that was fun. I sold my 2 cars. I sold my Zanardi, and I sold my regular NSX. I was going to keep it, but I got a nice Mercedes SUV, and I love that, and running out of space,
Yeah.
So I had to do what that was good. Great cars.
Yeah, the NSX is a collector car now. And it probably doesn't help that registration in Nevada is like $600-$700 a year. A lot of people don't know it. They think that the state doesn't have any state income tax in it, and it doesn't. But they get you on everything you do here.
Yeah, and that's why you see Montana place in Las Vegas, and stuff like that. You're like, that's a long drive.
Yeah, I really want to register it. So Miguel, you first of all, thank you for joining. And you started racing at the age of 9, motocross.
Yeah.
And you had a formidable father that's also a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And was it ever an option, or did you get like a motorcycle in your crib as you were lying there at the age of 3 and there was a motorcycle you were hugging instead of a teddy bear?
Yeah. Basically, that's about it. My dad loved racing, and he treated us all to a motorcycle very young. My brother had it when he was, I think, 2.5, 3, and I got mine when I was 3.5. Rode around. There's many pictures of me on the bike, and I think he almost invented the training wheels. He went to the local Canadian Tire in Canada, which is like an Home Depot, and got little wheels and bolted on the bikes to make sure when we first started, and with the throttle, and he tied a rope to the bike. So when, he would run behind us and tell us what to do. Not like you see a lot on Instagram and YouTube, people like, hey, get on the bike, good luck. They run up into a tree or something. So, we started with that. And then I remember like it was yesterday, we were driving up to our chalet, and there was a race going on, but close to the highway. And until then, I just raced my sister and my brother, and we had tons of fun doing that. Then we're like, we can race with all those other people. So that's how it kind of started at a very young age. And my mom and dad, they said, okay, we'll do a race. And I showed up on a Kawasaki 100. It was, I think we took the lights off of it. It was, not a motocross bike. My dad only put one shock because I weighed like 60 pounds and I couldn't even compress that. And I don't remember. It was funny. We just showed up and tried it, and that's spent too much time and money on it. My mom was praying that we would not like it, but unfortunately, my brother did really well, and I really liked it. I probably came in last or close to it, but I loved it. We had the film of that momentous occasion, and it was fun. And from there, here I am many years later, and it all worked out. It's when I look at racing and making money, motorcycle racing, I'm like, man, I should have picked a career being easier to make money and like maybe yodeling or something. Like you look at the dedication it took to all these racers, all the guys that did it to the top level, and some guys that got really close to the top level. I mean, the energy we put in there, if we put that in something else, it's probably a bit better paying job. We'd probably, doing this from my flying blimp or something. But anyway, it's still great, and it's a great community to be part of. That's one big thing about racing. As much as some people, I love the most people, and I maybe didn't like a few, but it was still fun to show up and see all that same group, So anyway, that's about it from there. Yeah, motocross was fun. It's my first love. I still motocross to this day. I'll go out in Sandy Valley, or I'll drive all the way up to California, or go up to Mesquite. Just past Mesquite in Arizona. There's a couple of tracks, and I do enjoy riding motocross.
And then
you still do the big jumps?
Oh yeah, no, there's not that used to be my specialty as a kid. And then my dad would encourage me. He goes, Miguel, if you can clear the same jumps that the 250s are clearing, this is back in the days of two-stroke, 250, 125, 80cc. And I was an ACC, I was a schoolboy. He goes, you'll get attention. That's how you're going to put pressure on people. And I love sending it. I love doing, back in those days, we had some quad jumps and doubles and triples and stuff. And man, it took all of my courage, but my dad goes, I know you can do it. So I always loved doing that. And I keep doing it to this day. I mean, I've done some track days here in Spring Mountain, up in Pahrump. It was a great facility and great guys that put a thing together. And I asked Honda, they lent me a bike. It was fantastic. And Kawasaki also, thank you very much. They lent me a motorcycle too. And, it kind of puts a twinkle in your eye because you're like, wow, this is a little bit easier than what I used to do, with the traction control and the automatic blip downshift. I'm like, wow, I'm doing half the work.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do this again, and I just scream around there, and I love riding with those guys and my buddies and just messing around with them. That was fun, but like I said, that's more of a difficulty thing for me to do. I'm kind of used to having somebody with my bike there, not me bringing my bike and my ridgeline and doing all that stuff. And you need tire warmers, right, and all that stuff. So where motocross, I just throw in a truck, go out there, start it, ride around. It's a Honda, always starts, even if I didn't start for a year, and go motocross. And so I like to stay busy like that, but I play golf. So I call that exercise, but more like fresh air.
Do you play golf with Jason Pridmore?
I have in the past when we used to race together. And I remember, this is a true story. I think it was like maybe 91 or 93. I went out to play. We're in Brainerd. There's a lot of beautiful golf course for inexpensive. And Jason showed me, like, he gets on his knees and he's hitting the ball 250. He was, trying to teach me a little bit. It's a shoulder turn, swing your arms. And I'm looking at him, and he's hitting the ball. Then we play golf, and he just, like all golfers, he complains, but he shoots like a 67. And he's like, oh, man, I can't putt, or I did this wrong. And I'm like, and I am looking at him, and I'm like, why are you racing motorcycles? If I had your skill at golf, I'd be like hitting 1 million golf balls a day and, making sure I don't hurt myself more than, drinking too much cocktail before a game or something. But I remember that I was really trying to encourage him, like, you should really try that. You're actually really good at it. And, and as he explained, it's very difficult, obviously, but everything is. But I remember thinking when I saw him hit the ball and the way he played so good, I was like, why are you racing motorcycles? And unfortunately, that prediction came through twice. He qualified for the U.S. Open, and I think it was twice. Obviously, he will tell you. But I know one time for sure he broke his lower leg, and he showed up with the support thing, the ring around the leg to stabilize his tibia. And actually played really well with that thing on his leg, almost made the cut to go to the main, and he made all the preliminaries to it. But anyway, yeah, so not recently. I mean, Jason's really busy doing what he's doing now, and I go out and play. Sometimes I'll play with Ben, though. We enjoy going out. I enjoy playing with Ben. He's real busy with his kids and everything. He's a great dad, and but when I can twist his arm, we go out and play at my course at Bears Best, or we go. He sometimes let me sneak into the Summit, which is the most exclusive living area here in Vegas, which is it's nice to know Ben.
Well, Jason speaks very fondly with you with great respect, because I've often taken his courses, and we're good friends, and he used you as an example, but you can feel the respect in his voice when he talks about your racing. And sometimes he'll say, well, Miguel used to do this and teach students how to better ride, but there was always this intonation in his voice where there was always like a role model in terms of racing.
That's awesome. Here's a funny little fact. We raced at Pomona, California, and Jason and I were racing against each other. And I was on Kawasaki, so it's 93. And it might have been Honda. Anyway, we were racing in Pomona, and they had cones. The racetrack was made of cones, basically. Go around that cone, left cone. Not the best thing in the world, but, we're trying to get crowds to come out. Anyway, we're racing the race, and I clipped the cone with my knee. And the cone goes flying behind me. And we're like, 600 racing. There's like 7 of us racing for first place. Well, guess what? It flew off my knee into Jason's front wheel and crashed him. And after the race, I saw that he crashed, and I didn't know I hit the cone that hit him. And I was like, of all the guys, we were pretty good buddies back then. I'm like, of all the 7 guys behind me, my golf partner got freaking taken out by a cone that I accidentally hit with my knee. So, but he didn't hold it against me. He knew it was an accident. Funny, I think.
It's like a Marquez episode. He somehow keeps doing that to other racers.
No, Mark is a little bit different, but that's something different. He's a great talent. I mean, this guy, he's got iron guts too. Obviously we kind of all need that to go through the things that we go through, and definitely be interesting. I think everybody else, I can't wait for next season when he's rides around with that Ducati. Isn't it funny though? Not that long ago, at least for me, we're talking 20, 30 years, so I guess it is. I mean, you wouldn't even dream of Ducati and GP being competitive, and KTM, it's like, are you kidding me? I remember when McGrath tried to ride their motocross bike, and they were like, ooh, this is not going to work. And look where we are today, 223. And if you're not a Ducati or a KTM, you basically don't have a chance. The mighty Honda and Kawasaki, Honda and Yamaha, thank God are still in there. I'd love to see Kawasaki back in there and Suzuki, but isn't it crazy that we did that 180 on racing, and never I would have thought that the Honda or Yamaha would be pining to compete against those guys. But it makes them great racing, that's for sure.
When you were doing GP, it was they also had the Kajivas over there that were pretty good, yep. Right?
Yeah, they had one of the best riders on them. I think Eddie was one. They had Randy on it and did a lot of development. I think they had Kenny Roberts to do some development, like secretly. But by the time that Eddie Lawson got on it, he pushed it forward, and obviously won in Budapest. I was there. It was a half rain, half dry track, and he called it perfect and smoked all of us. And the one thing that was really surprising for me when I went to GP in '92 is how friendly everybody were. Kevin Schwantz, Wayne Rainey, Eddie Lawson, and very approachable. Could just talk. I thought it would be like, a bit of a elitist, a Heisman, stay away from me kind of thing. But they were, hey man, how you doing? And we're just chit chatting. I got almost goosebumps. Like, wow, these are the guys that you aspire to get to and beat and try to race. And they were just, hey man, and I love that. That really that was really nice. Wayne Gardner was the same. We were in Assen when he got hurt pretty bad. He had a big crash, and his wife kept giving him beers and aspirin, and he looked at me and goes, I think she's trying to kill me. But it was just hilarious, and he gave me a tip. He goes, I think you need to be a bit more aggressive. I go, well, my bike is so bad. I have trouble feeling the bike. And the next race, we went to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I stuffed him and passed him. He must have been like, well, he took my advice to really, to heart. And that was my best race of the year. And the thing I like about Sao Paulo and Brazil is nobody knew the track. So we all started the same spot, and I was able to get a top 5. And my deal with Yamaha France was a 2-year deal. Obviously, we didn't look the fine print. It was optional second year. Because my point to that story is I wouldn't have let Wayne go. At Japan, I was in for a podium. I started dead last. And the only reason I qualified is because Rain won and was dry the other ones. So I was 36 out of 38 riders on the last row. And in like 4 laps, I was fighting for the lead with Mick Doohan and John Kaczynski and Wayne Gardner when he just fell in front of me, and Wayne Rainey. And I was just flying around those guys. And that was my first race in GP. And I was thinking, like, we're going to win this thing. And I was really comfortable, and I was riding, and I was well within, it's not like I was pulling rabbits out of where. And when I fell after a Dunlop curve at Little Degna, to this day, I'm still mad about it because I don't know what happened. I actually leaned the bike in, and as I was picking it up, the front end just locked up. I don't know if the brakes dragged or something. And John was kind of blocking me because I was trying to get by John to go get Nick and Doug Chandler to make sure I get a podium. So when that happened, you see me walking up, and I'm like, what the hell was that? Why did, But anyway, that was a great year. And I want to roll into this is also that's the only track I knew, Suzuka. Then they go to France, and they go to, instead of going to Castello Le Mans, they go to Magny-Cours. I'm like, what the hell's that? And then when we go somewhere else, we go anywhere track that we went where I had a career racing and I could do it. I was looking to go to Le Mans, hopefully, or anywhere. They avoided those tracks that 1 year. Then now they go back to Le Mans. They always did. I'm like, why? Why? So anyway, when we went to Sao Paulo, I think I could have stayed with Wayne Gardner. I think I could have got him for fourth, but because I didn't, this bike was a bit unpredictable because the chassis was so bad, and Wayne Rainey underlined that for the whole year. We were so mad at Yamaha, and he was Marlboro, and I was, the B rider and or the C rider on the B team or whatever you want to call it. Neil was a great guy. Neil McKenzie was my teammate. Very quiet, very nice. And at Sao Paulo, like I said, I think I could have stayed with Wayne and got fourth. But since it was in the podium, I said, well, let's just get a top five. That's something. And, that should make sure that next year we're going to come back and get more of these and probably some wins. And then next year they said, we're not paying you. And if you want to stay, we'll only race in Europe at the tracks that we have a spare bike for you. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like a hell of a deal. Worst sales pitch ever. So I came back to America because I was racing motorcycle to make money and make a living. I wanted to be, that's why you do it. That's one of the reasons I did it. And it all worked out.
I think there's a lot of riders that are not getting paid these days, and they're making the money. Yeah, they're making the money off sponsorships. So do you have any sponsors?
I can't. You'll hear me complain because I'm a racer. We always complain about little things, and we tend to maybe focus sometimes too much on that. But I look back on my career, how from motocross, I was really hot stuff in motocross, and I got lazy and I got my ass handed to me. When I got really to be good at motocross, I should have went to America and raced against guys like Eric Hill was my age, and those were the big names of and I was so full of confidence. It was a little bit nauseating. And I did it wrong. And I got my ass kicked. And by the time I started getting back serious into it, I was getting older, it was harder. I got a big injury, but I was getting back into the podium in the expert class. But the pay there, like you just said, there was nothing. If I kicked everybody's butt all year, I make $25,000, $30,000. I'm like, what's that? Anyway, for the effort you're putting in, motocross is, as super training. So I learned from that. And when I went to road racing, I didn't like it at first. I thought it was boring, no jumps, nothing. But as I pushed it enough to where I could slide the tires, I'm like, okay, this is fun. And as soon as I start being successful in Canada, I'm like, first thing I did, I'm like, get me to the United States. Which leads to my point of my story is I'm so lucky that in my young age, right at that peak of my career, that AMA racing got serious. Because just a year or two before that, again, you couldn't make money racing in America. And then boom, it started, and one thing leads to another, big sponsorship, and and the racing was top caliber. One of the reasons why I didn't go to Europe is because if I can win in America, I think it'd be the same thing in Europe. Because when Scott went over there, he did it, and when John went over there, he did it, and the World Superbike, and Colin, when he went up, I'm not saying it was easier, definitely not. It was, at least as hard, maybe harder. I like those tracks, flowing tracks better than the tracks we have here where it's a lot of stop and go. And the money was about the same, so I stayed in America. So
I think also
that's one of my shorter answers. Did you ask me a question, or did I just go?
you just went, but that's all right.
When you have a career as rich as yours, it flows.
Yeah, I think a factor of how much you get paid as a racer is your star power and how many butts you can put in the seats and how many people you can have buying your merch or products you're endorsing. Mm-hmm. And you see it with Formula One, where it's less of the driving capabilities and more of the personality and how people can relate to you. And how big of a star you make yourself. So did you ever try to do that? Did you ever try to be a more, flamboyant personality, stand out, make more fans?
No, I never did. That's just the way I was. That's how I'm wired. To this day, I go play golf, and people want to adopt me because I'm making them laugh for 18 holes of golf, and strangers, and my buddies that know me. I mean, that gets to be a lot, but still, they still invite me to play. And no, I was brought up by my parents. Obviously, my mom and dad. My dad was very humble. I mean, here's a guy that was almost too humble. Nobody will ever match what my dad did, and it's not because it's my father. If I be one side to seven, and not be talk about somebody else that did what he did. I mean, that's just unbelievable. So snowmobile racing and everything, and he was my dad, so he got abused. Sometimes I look back and be like, I should have been more respectful of what he accomplished, but it's your dad, just. But anyway, no, my dad was like that. He was very personal with everybody. Loved to have fun and talk, and I always had time for fans. So I had no problem with that. That's just something I rolled into, and I love doing it. I mean, why am I here? People are. I would get away with some negativity. Who wants that in anybody's life? But it was so much fun talking to everybody. And my only, I don't regret might be a big word, but I wish as much as I was accessible with my fans and everything, I wish I would have been more. Sometimes a little bit too focused on staying cool before a race and hydrating and making sure I got everything right. Did I tell them about the brake fading? Oh, yeah, okay, I remember that. The adjuster's loose. And you go through everything. And so you're kind of doing that because there's a few times where I was signing autographs, especially when I first came on scene in 91. In 1990 and 91, I would sign autograph till the race would start. Mechanic would almost be like, you're going to miss the start, And I'd be out there sweating and everything. I was younger, so I was, But as I get older, you try not to make any mistakes because I'm the only one that knew that I made a mistake. I would go out and I forgot to tell them about the rebound. I forgot about telling them that. Then I'm suffering on a motorcycle. On a motorcycle, the beauty is you can win on a bike that's a little inferior to what you need or want. You can still, manage that difference, especially in my days. But then you try to learn, going, okay, I sit in the truck. Okay, I got to do this, that. I don't want my tongue sticking to my palate because I forgot to hydrate before the race. So let's drink some water, not too much because I want to be stuck, wanting to go to the bathroom while I'm running. And that's funny. You see all us racers. We always ask for bathrooms so we could go right before. And anyway, no, I just in today's world, I mean, I'd like to. That might be dangerous because today, like you said, with social media and everything, and they're more into you. I think they would like me, but there's something I'm sure they wouldn't like. But it's. I always felt that was a gift to have the fans show up as they did, and I was able to make that money is because of them. If there was nobody there, then I could still do it, but with less money. No, it was fantastic. I was very blessed, like I said, to have my career projection go up at the same time as American racing with involvement with the factories and involvement in the sponsorship, and we had decent TV coverage and everything. It could have always been better, of course. I always yell at AMA, let's stop making us dependent on factories and make enough prize money where, even the fact there's a few guys, privateers I would see ride really well, but they can't make it weekend to weekend. I mean, it's costing them too much money. Now, if they can make $10,000 for finishing 7 or 8 or $7,000, at least they can pay a guy. They can, they can have parts and go to the next weekend and actually not put themselves in debt because, as you know, racing is, big debts for many guys. So, but anyway,
I see.
I love being around the fans. I sometimes I'd like to do a signing tour, just go back, race, fill the grid, finish in the top 10 or 15, wherever I'd finish, and just spend most of my time just signing autograph and talking to people and say a proper goodbye. My last tour around, but I did it pretty well while I was there, so it's not too bad. I don't lose too much sleep over it.
Yeah, I see.
So I have a two-part question actually, that because of what you just said. In your generation, the racers had bigger personalities, very flamboyant, a lot less restriction put on them on what they should or shouldn't say, maybe a lot less politically correct. Even in Formula One, right? You had Hunt and Lauda and the famous rivalries and fights that no team orders or contravening team orders. Then you had the big money from the cigarette companies when there was no restrictions from any type of product on sponsoring. So my two-part question is, do you think on one hand, the sport is better off because in essence, right now, everybody's such a good corporate citizen. You go and at MotoGP, they're all extremely polite. They're careful about what they say. Everything is regimented and disciplined and almost too sanitized. I mean, sometimes we used to go to the after parties of MotoGP, and these guys wouldn't want to take a picture taken with a drink in their hand because they don't think that's appropriate and they're sending the wrong message, although they're in a club partying. and then at the same time the sponsorship changed. So in your mind, Miguel, do you think that the appeal of the motorcycle and racing in general, but motorcycle racing in particular, is smaller or bigger because of this change in how kind of interesting, I guess, the racing is outside of the actual racing, but with the personalities? And then is it easier or harder today to get sponsorships? Because there's a lot of personal sponsors and team sponsor, but you have less companies that can participate. Like cigarette companies can do it, alcohol companies can do it, and so on. So is political correctness helping or hurting our sport?
Well, that's a good question. I think behaving in the right way, though, is very important for kids. I mean, there's kids watching us. They're growing up. They're on mini bikes. Mini bikes boom, and it's great to see little guys with the helmet bigger than their whole body riding those motorcycles and motocross and then road race. So there's got to be a balance of that. I think it's almost anything in small amounts is good. You can always do it right. So I agree. It'd be maybe to be a bit more flamboyant and do some things that we could do in the old days, because there wasn't a 24/7 camera on us and everybody judging you. And it's one thing to have Paul Carruthers that gives you his opinion because he's been around racing with his father also, and he's been a journalist forever, and say, I think this is this or that. And you're facing one guy, but it's another thing to have like a comment list of 20,000 people, like just throwing whatever they think that you did wrong and being affected by that. So I think some of the people, the reaction is like, well, if I do nothing, then they can't comment on it, and it makes my life easier because we do have a life beside racing. And we do have we're emotional people. I mean, it's a complicated thing, but I think it's up to the rider and what you can get away with. I mean, our job is always to push it in racing, and then also maybe push it when you can do interviews. Some people don't have that personality. I mean, I did a WWF Randy Macho Man style, interview with Larry Myers about Eric Bostrom. I was going to put him out, but that was good. That was entertaining, and the guys need to do that. I think if I would be part of that group, because I'm a bit out of that circus right now, but if I be in, I'd go, hey man, you can be funny, you can do this, and if you do something, well, you can always say sorry. I mean, that was misinterpreted. I meant to be funny, just trying to roll on top of it, I probably would get in trouble on every day on a regular basis, but it's something that they got to maneuver around, unfortunately. And you brought up the cigarette thing, and that just annoyed me to no end, because they have endless money, Marlboro, Rotmans, and Lucky Strike, and they stop it because, well, it's bad influence for kids or whatever. Well, I'm a kid. I grew up in that business of racing, watching Marlboro, Yamaha, Rotman, watching all those guys racing and stuff. I don't smoke.
Right.
Patrick Carpentier, which is a very, very one of the best racers in IndyCar when IndyCar was there. He was players, and he goes, you know what? I never once thought I wanted to smoke. I always thought I want to race, But the reason I'm complaining about it is like you just said. I mean, if that flow of money could be back in there, it'd be so much better for our sport. It would help us we have much better racing, Formula One and everything. I mean, they're not struggling. We're still doing it, but it'd be so much easier. And I think it was a bit of a lie. I think people smoke because they're stressed and they're freaking out about it. But I don't, like I said, for me, I look at Aaron Yates, I look at Anthony Gobert, I look at all the guys I raced, Ben Bostrom. None of us smoked, and we all grew up in that generation of the 70s, late 70s, 80s. And so on and so forth, where that was what we were looking at. And you look at all the racers, and I mean, a few smoked. Michael Barnes, but he smoked before, I think. Mike was a lot older than me. But Mike was a great guy, But the list of race. I mean, even back in those days, Aldana and guys like that race, they would smoke. They would race, and they were maybe not sponsored by, but they were just smokers. Smoking was much more relevant. You could smoke in the plane back in those days, kids.
Right.
And,
I remember
that. Yeah, but still, for me, I wanted to be a racer. So sometimes that goes back to what you said, political correctness and this and that. I mean,
even the Pepsi money is gone, right? Pepsi used to sponsor.
Yeah, but they didn't even have the link to stay in there. That's the thing that happened in France when he was Gauloise. Gauloise is a French cigarette company, and they said, "Well, we'll tell you Banco. Banco is like Canada. They own the lottery." So they made up the money they were losing because they banned cigarettes. Because they said, well, McDonald's going to jump in and Microsoft and everything, which I don't know why they don't, especially a company like Microsoft or Apple, which have tons of money. And now bikes are so electronically based that, you think that'd be something to be, but unfortunately it doesn't. I mean, the only people that like to play in that is beers and cigarettes, And
it's
unfortunately,
funny.
we don't have access to that money.
It's funny how regular cigarettes going away and then they made weed legal. So
yeah,
it's like, well, where's your logic?
Train here and I cycle all the time here, and there's cars that go by me, and you can smell it. It almost knocks you over on the bicycle. And I'm like, okay, I'm not allowed to have a beer in my car, which I understand that nobody should be driving drunk ever. But I'm pretty sure that guy is having a good time, and I'm hoping it's the passenger, but it could be the driver. And I hope he doesn't fall asleep and hit me like Larry Pegram got hit by a motorist not too long ago. I don't know if you heard about that. He got clipped while cycling, so and luckily he's okay, but he got banged up a bit. So
isn't he like a big weed
grower?
No,
it's funny. Isn't it weird?
Isn't he like a big weed grower? He has his own.
Actually, he is. Yeah. It's funny that we run into that. Well, like you say, if you do your things at home and everything, well, you're supposed to, and you're doing a controlled place, that's okay. But my problem with it is, first of all, it stinks more than a cigarette. And if anybody smokes in my neighborhood, I'm like, who the hell's doing that? Because it annoys me. My dad always had this really simple explanation about cigarettes, and it applies to pot. He goes, when I drink my beer, I don't spit it back in you. You don't get to smell it. You don't get to taste it. I don't get to spray on you. When you take a puff of cigarette, if you could hold it in, you're good with me, and then I can, but you blow it back out in my face, and it's all over the place. So there's a fine line to be walked there. But it is funny how they went really hard on cigarettes, and then they legalize pot, which is not just smoke and annoying, but it's an intoxicant too. It's like alcohol. So
you can't walk on the strip 5 minutes without smelling it. And I remember I was before I moved to Vegas, I was here accidentally for the first day where it became legal. And I guess the state ran out of weed. Like the entire state just ran out in one day because everybody bought it.
Huh. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you.
There's another thing, another lesson for the kids out there, and I'm going to get in trouble for all these things sooner or later. But anyway, I mean, here's when pot was illegal, all the crime people were making tons of money. The government takes it over, and they can't have trouble making money with it. They legalize it, and just showing how the government is not that efficient. Because I remember when you were here, like you said, and when they started legalizing it to help our schools, and we're going to use that extra money to do this and that. And I'm like, oh, I don't see schools. No, I don't see anybody going, yay, man, these are good. It's sheesh, I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
They use the money to exercise more control, but not to fix the infrastructure.
If I'm
they have to rush and pave when COVID was around, I went cycling. I loved it because there was nobody on the streets and everything. I was cycling. I did a couple of 100-mile rides, but bigger loops than usual. And I go on the strip, and I was riding on the strip, and I almost got flats because the strip was all messed up. And this is, obviously it didn't happen because I was riding my bicycle. It was messed up before COVID started. And I'm like, how can one of the most rich, famous street be this bad? And you saw they had to pave it till almost the last day for Formula One. And again, it goes back to what are you doing with our money? I mean, I don't mind if in summer there's a few bad roads. I mean, with the heat and everything, they'll fix it sooner or later. But the strip for me, I mean, it's a sense of pride. I mean, people come here to spend a lot of money and have a lot of fun. Give them a nice street to drive on,
Yeah.
Anyway, that we're getting. Are we still talking about racing?
Yeah, let's talk about racing. Let's talk about 1987. You rode an RZ 350 and an FZ 750 in Eastern Canada. And that was the year before you started racing professionally in 1988. So how was riding that legendary RZ 350?
That was such a fantastic chassis motorcycle. Great two-stroke. I mean, I love that bike. I mean, I could just rail through corners. And, the one thing I didn't do now that we're talking about, I'm talking two-stroke, when my career took off in Canada, I came to America, maybe I should have done the same thing that I did with Canada, America. I should have went to Europe to go GP because I used to be a two-stroke specialist. I hated four-stroke. Back then they didn't have the slipper clutch. You go to downshift, the wheel would start hopping off the ground, and you have to do the clutch thing, and it really set me back as far as corner speed. Because with the 350, I would race against superbikes, and we found out that even though my lap times were faster than the superbikes, they're in the corner at the same time as you. So even if you go around them a bit, then they ought to accelerate you and then break and stop you in the corner, which led to a lot of mayhems and fights almost. But I love that 350. Oh man, that's so much fun. And back then, Honda, they were my enemy because they came out with the NSR 400 and they allowed them to race. So the class now was 400. These guys would blow by me pretty good in the straight. Shannonville had a long straight. That's where I used to race, in Saint Air in Quebec. But I'd still beat them. And they always thought I was cheating because they're like, well, how can this bike do that? I'm like, dude, I went around you on the brakes and then I left you in the next corner. I mean, what did that have to do? I mean, we rode tires. We were on the strict budget. And I remember when I rode the Metzeler ME1s, and we would ride those things till the cords almost showed up. And I was even thinking, like, maybe if I get rid of all these like cuts, it'll be a slick. That doesn't work. They don't turn into slick. They turn into slippery. I was almost crashing everywhere, but I could save that thing, slide it, even though I didn't have that much power, like through 4, the carousel, Shannonville, on my knee, like dirt tracking it through there. It was so much fun. And the 750 was a pain in my, It wasn't that competitive. We couldn't find a steering dampener for it. So we took one from a BMW, but it didn't really have enough power. So it would really head shake a lot. And just to give you an idea how factory star I was then, my mechanic at the time goes, let's bend the shaft. So that'll create some more stiction. So maybe that would be a better steering dampener. That didn't work. It led to one of my biggest crash. Back then, I was racing with motocross gloves, no back protector, and going down to Mossport, beautiful track, fantastic track. Going left, the bike kept wobbling. And every time the steering dampener got hot, I couldn't drive it. And then I couldn't ride it. But when it got cool, I could go and I could pass a bunch of guys. But then I would almost die. And then one day I thought, maybe I can save it. So I crashed and literally destroyed the motorcycle, which wasn't mine, was lent to me. Just destroyed that thing. My gloves went flying off, broke my back, broke my vertebrae in my bottom of my back. And the bike, it was such a big, fast crash. It took like an hour to find the motorcycle. It was in the woods, gone, destroyed. And we put it back together to give the guy. Would have been cheaper to actually buy a new one and put it back to the parts we did. But the 750 I didn't like that much. It didn't do it to me. But the 350, that was great, man. Then I raced the 250 for John Lassick, and I set some track records here, and I set a track record in Shannonville, but I think they just got tired of seeing it, so they gave it to somebody else. But I love 250s and two strokes, and man, I going back, and it brings back a lot of good memories of my corner speed and everything. I could get away with those bikes.
And then 1988 rolls around. You begin your professional career. 1988 winning top rookie of the year on board the Monty Sport Kawasaki's backed by Pepsi. How did that Pepsi Kawasaki deal work?
Well, and Pepsi, we know this guy was trying to help me. He was a friend of ours, and we had this big bottle of Pepsi and everything. And the only thing we got was like free, all the Pepsi we can drink, So we didn't really get any. I think we got $1,000, and which was appreciated, but didn't pay for the season. Pay for a weekend, and we hauled the big bottle around. It was just we were hoping we did that, so the next year they would come in with bigger money and something more. But that didn't happen.
You never got the Harrier plane.
Kawasaki. I mean, that bike was like 3 years old, 2 to 3 years old. Had been modified a few times by the previous owner, both mechanically and throwing over the fence. And it was it handled good. You give me a good handling bike, I can run with anybody. And that's what I was able to do with that bike. And the Ninja 750, and my 600 was pretty slow, but it all handled good. And I was very competitive that year. To this day, I'm still mad at Gary Goodfellow because I think I should have won in Vancouver. He got the start in the back, but if you look at the start, he jumped the start. Should have been black flag. But I got to finish on the podium there, and that was my first podium. And the next race was in the rain.
Let it go. Just breathe. Let it go. Let it go. Just breathe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Yesterday.
There we go.
Yeah, but he did jump the start. No, but and then Gary's a good guy. I mean, he was a very talented racer. He did good for Canada. He pushed and raced around the world like Michel Mercier did and everything. Good bunch of guys. Again, the racing in Canada was very strong, very stout, which made me a better racer. Some people think, oh, let's lower it down to, have somebody else have a chance. Well, I'm not going to have a chance when he gets with the real guys. So I hit the hardest in America and Canada, and hit the hardest in America when I started racing. And Listen to this. We go back to Canada. We hit a moose, by the way, driving back on motorhome. Just crawled out in the middle of the darkness, hit a moose. And we fixed the motorhome, and we told the guy we want to keep the leg and some meat of it. We might as well keep it, that's not waste it. And we're by Lake Erie, so somebody on the lake, there was a bunch of hunters that showed up, and they helped us with that. And then we picked up the meat, we took it to Montreal, and we ate it. It was delicious. But then our bike, we took the head off the superbike, and we look at the piston, and there's little marks on the piston. We're like, what the hell's that? And then we turn over, and the guides for the valves were breaking off. I guess with the vibrator, there was a problem. There's a valve guide, and they're breaking. So with our limitless budget and factory racing what we did is we took the head, put it on in the spinning thing, and we just cut them all down. The guides, no more guides. We don't need those things. They're messing up the piston. And put the engine back on, started it. Norm Murphy was a racer. He was more factory than I was. When he saw us do that, he was scratching his head. Bike started, and that weekend I won. Beat Michel Mercier in the rain, and my first Superbike win.
You know those guys are there for a reason.
We didn't with no valve guides. That was above our pay grade. We're like, they were just breaking off. They look like crap. Might as well just like mill them down so they stop breaking. And that's how we went about racing. I mean, I remember that year in Calgary, I was talking to Steve Dick, another good racer, and we're buddies. And man, I just got beside him, and he let go of the brakes, and he just closed the door. I mean, I crashed, and luckily nobody hit me. And I was so mad at him. I was like, "Why'd you do that? First corner." I mean, that's the thing that you do for the win. This is the first corner of the 20-lap race. What are you trying to do to me? Anyway, we worked hard on that. My dad did a lot of work. He was a pretty good mechanic, and for some reason the disc brakes were not fitting again. We had to grind those things down. I kept thinking, man, the brakes are going to fail. I'm going to die. But I don't know, all good times and all worked out.
I got a question for you, but I don't mean to get you all rotted up more than you are. So you won Daytona 5 times. Scott Russell won Daytona 5 times. Why did he get the nickname Mr. Daytona?
No, I don't know. I mean, Scott's an American guy, I'm as American as apple pie. And as far as like, I didn't come to America to change it, but I understand that, Scott's a great guy. I won it before he did, I think. No, did he win it before me with Suzuki? Anyway, yeah, we're all tied, and I won I mean, Scott's like I said, Scott's a great guy. We weren't the best close buddies, but we were good buddies. I mean, if we'd see each other, we'd have a drink together, no problem. And I remember one time somebody told him, Mr. Daytona, and he just looked at the guy and goes, Miguel won a lot more than I did. Because, I won 600, so many. I think I won like 12 times Daytona, 5 Superbike and the rest 600s. And I even raced there in motocross in the C class, 125. When my dad raced in 86, I got a top 5. I got a big trophy. It's right there that I got. And I finished in the top 5, raced the legendary Supercross track at Daytona. That bike had no power, which was kind of great because, it's sand. I was just wide open the whole time. And somebody just sent me a couple of pictures. I tried to jump over this guy one time because I was just trying to get in front of him. But that was a good time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's how it is. You don't get to pick those things. You want a cool nickname, but he got it, so that's all right.
What's a cool nickname for you? We got to think about it.
Oh, I don't know.
We got to think about it.
I'm pretty modest. You can call me Legend or,
okay,
something like that. Something. I mean, God's pushing a little bit because blasphemy, but something around those low low levels would be nice. So I'm just happy to be me, man. I just Harley Davidson. They said, well, let's just because is it Duhamel? Is it Duhamel? And I'm like, well, both pronunciation and French sound about the same. So I'm like, whatever you guys want. And one guy at Harley, let's just call you Hammer. I'm like, I like that. I'm like, call me the Hammer. That's cool. So for a little while, that was the Hammer with Harley. But that's how it rolls. You don't pick those things.
You won.
I never wanted to be called. A lot of people call me Mig, like that. It's my abbreviation, Miguel Mig. But then I'm like, I'm in America. I don't want nobody to think I'm a Russian sympathizer with the MiG airplane. So I'm like, I'm gonna squash that right away. That's what I was thinking. I was always thinking. Sometimes I overthink things.
Yeah, MiG Hammer would sound a lot like a NATO designation for a Russian plane.
Yeah, again, see, there you go. Yes, comrade. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You won with every variation of the RC 30, 45, 51. How was the progression of the machinery in Honda? Because Honda is not known, or at least was not known for taking big steps, and in those years, those were giant steps. So every time you got the new bike, did you go like, oh, you guys did good, or how's the progression?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot in there. I'm going to try to keep it more brief. But I'm not going to succeed. But I just want you to know I'm trying. But when I went from Harley Davidson in '94 to '95, went to Honda, which was very, very good for me because it was a bidding war to get my services. Same thing in '94, Harley won. In '95, Honda won. And Kevin McGee was developing the RC45. Well, yeah, that was the RC45 then. And first time I rode was in Daytona, and that bike tried to kill me. I mean, I went out and I did like 5 laps, and I came in and I remember my Honda team, they're all like, how great is this bike? And I'm like, not really. I go, this is horrible. And they're laughing. I'm like, no, I don't like to make jokes. But so I would like, I remember like it was today, and it kind of led to me not getting a job with Merlin Plumley, which is really sad. I really want to work with Merlin. My girlfriend's going to work. I really wanted to work with Merlin Plumley because he was so great. He was a fantastic man and great mechanic. But here's why he didn't want to work with me. So I go out, I come back, I said, this is really bad. And they go, let's try one click and rebound. Let's try one click and reverse compression. And every time I went out, it was a miracle. I came back not killing myself, not crashing. I mean, I was losing the front and the banking. I mean, losing like, oh my God. And your heart just stopped. And I was like, this is unacceptable. I mean, it's banking, but it's basically going in a straight line. I mean, they should be able to do that. So after 3 times of coming in and trying to explain to my mechanic that we need like, I don't need a click in their freaking blah, blah, blah. I need a new front end. I mean, we're talking maybe even a chassis. This thing is horrible. What are you not understanding? So, I start stalking like that with my eyes, and I'm like, you got to do this. I'm not going to write this thing. It's the theft machine. So they and Merlin heard that, and it threw him off. He didn't like a rider talking after his mechanic. But like I told him, I've known Merlin forever. May he rest in peace now. But I used to say, I did that to shock them to do something, because they almost were like, let's change the sticker. You think the sticker would be nicer? You'd like the sticker on the fairing? You think that's going to help? And I was like, no. Take this thing, put it in the crusher, tell Japan to send us a new one, But from there, it was a hard struggle. I mean, I'm telling you, the bike was horrible. And then we made it work, obviously, and won everything that year. And what really spiked me that year was my teammate, Mike Hale. All my teammates were great. Mike was a great teammate, and he was a great racer. And we're racing, and he's having more success than I am. I have a couple of bad luck. I hit Jimmy James' rear fender with my front brake at Pomona, crash, and when I try to pick up the bike, I rip up the air ducts. Anyway, so my first few races were not that good with that bike, crashed at Daytona. And but 600, I was doing pretty good. And me and Mike were fighting it out, smoking Joes. And then the Laguna Seca was the turning point for me. I do a good race in Superbike. And in the 600 race, me and Mike were going at it. I mean, we're gone. We left everybody. And I'm going last corner, going 11. I'm like coming out of 10. I'm setting him up a bit. I go, if he makes it kind of easy, if he gets lazy on the brake, I'm going to pass him. But if not, he's my teammate, and I like him. I mean, if he wasn't my teammate, was Kawasaki, somebody else, I probably ran it in there. I'm like, well, tough break, kid. See you later. But I'm like, it's Mike. I go, if he wins, and I finish second, 1-2. I mean, we got the first 2 steps at the podium. Next race, I'll win, and he'll get second. So he, I go to throw it in there, and I said, well, if I do, I might pump it off the track, and I don't want to do that. So I step behind, he wins, I get second. I went and celebrate. I come in pit lane. My entire team and this team are celebrating like he just won the world championship, or just like an Armageddon, like got rid of the meter, was destroyed the planet. And I'm holding my bike going like, can somebody put a stand on this thing? I mean, did he just win the world championship? This is like the 3rd race in the season, or 4th race. And I'm being like stiff arm Heisman again, like go away. I don't know which way it is. And finally, they put the stand on my bike. I get out the bike, and now I am fuming. I am just like, I can't believe that's just not right. We're a team. Why am I being this? And this is the only time I think my dad shows up in the team bus as I'm getting undressed. And he goes there to console me. He goes, Miguel, you had a good race, and you did good, kid, just keep it up. And he was always very positive, my dad. And I just went, F this. That's never happening again. And then I just blurred out and with more explicit what I just told you guys. And I went, not winning again. That's it. And I was just like fuming, veins popping. And my dad went, okay, all right, good meeting. And he walks out. And from that on, I won 6 in a row on Superbike, and I won 13 in a row in the 600. So the moral of the story is don't get me mad. And, again, Mike had a great career, and he was a great teammate, and we had fun. But that really lit the fire underneath me. And went through the development, the RC45. The best RC45 was 1998 and 1999. The development there was terrific. I used to use springs that the Japanese say, you can't use these springs. They're too hard. I'm like, I'm using them. And they wouldn't believe it but I set it up so I could brake super deep. That's why I was competitive in the World Superbike. Me and John Kozinski would go at it. I sure wish we had the same tire rules that we have today back then, but we didn't. He had Michelin, I had the Dunlop. But we did some really good work with that. And unfortunately, the problem with Honda is after they get bored after 4 or 5 years, like, okay, let's do something else. I'm like, no, this is perfect. I can win with this every day, But it was the way it was. And on a side note, with John Kozinski, when I was in the World Superbike, I was leading the race. I passed him. I wanted to lead at least 5 or 10 laps, which when my tires started going down and I knew he was going to walk away from me. I went through turn 6, after turn 5 and turn 6 up under the bridge, the left-hander going up to the corkscrew. And I had the line there. It's just, again, with my bike set up, I go in the brakes so deep, get the bike sideways sliding over there, just get back on and dirt track it all the way up the hill. Just a little bit of power drift all the way to the painting line. I pull like half a second, 0.3 of a second, which is a lot in one section on John. So at the end of the race, I'm on the podium. John won. We're in the same truck waving, go around, you wave at the crowd. Hey. And we're going around, wave. John's not a big talker. Not to me anyway. We get to turn 6, and he just looks at me, grabs me by the shoulder, goes, you were really fast through here. And then he just starts waving again. And I just start waving. And it was one of the best compliments I've ever received. Here's a competitor we're not the best friends in the world. World champion. I mean, John Kozinski, everybody knows that guy. But for him to take my attention and say, hey, you were so fast through her, it was impressive. And then you just start waving again. And we never talked about it again. But for me, it stuck forever. There's little things like that you got to cherish. And that's one word that I really like. RC45 was my favorite bike. The RC30 was good, a little too stiff on the front, hard to turn, but I did like the RC30, raced the 24 hours with it. RC45, like I said, the last 2 years I broke my femur, bad luck, and I even won, I'd only raced like 4 races, and I won 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and then I got hurt. So you can see that I'm saying is true, and if I didn't get hurt, a little bad luck, I would have won a lot more. The RC51, I didn't like it as much as Nicky. Nicky was great on it. Turned out that we didn't have the idle high enough. So I couldn't carry any corner speed. Every time I shut off, it had so much compression. And the day we discovered that, I went from being almost a second down to being as fast as anybody and then start winning with it. The idle. Yes, people. No brakes, no special jet, no special tires, anything like that. Just turn the idle up so when I shut off and in transition, the bike would roll a little bit better. Boom. Start winning with that bike. It was a solid bike, but it wasn't my favorite. Then the CBR 1000 came out, and that thing was a spaceship.
Did it have a slipper clutch? The RC51? Did they have a
yeah, but we couldn't get it. We couldn't adjust it right. We tried, and we just couldn't get it right. And just with the gearing that I wanted, with the way the slipper clutch had to be, I just couldn't get it to work. And it was as simple as that. It might have been Merlin Plumley that slipped the lip or something, and we're hearing him talking, and the bike went from just that little difference, boom. And with this, the day we discovered that was at Sears Point, and I went from 6 fastest to second to naked gear or something like that, and then we were off to the races, literally.
Nice, yeah. The 1000. I was going to say the 1000. You had the sheer bad luck of going up in that bike against the Suzukis, right?
No, the 1000 CBR, the first thing about it, I loved it was 1000. And 750s was cool. You could do 190 with the bike, and top speed. The 1000 was doing 200. And from 190 to 200 is only 10 miles an hour, but it's like 90 miles an hour faster. It's hard to explain. The gaps of speed and your brain processing power it's quite a lot. I remember like when I threw that thing out of the chicane in the banking coming out of 3 and 4, and I always had a light that I would look at, come out, get on the throttle, look for my light, and start bringing it down and try to miss all those cracks. Back then, the banking was all messed up. You didn't want to hit that tar because it really upset the bikes. Can't tell on TV, but trust me, it did. And I come out of the chicane, I'm up, and that thing just, I'm like, was that the light? Did I just miss my I mean, it was like, I felt like Captain Kirk in Star Trek when he goes warp speed. And I just called like that to my bike. I'm like, oh my God, this thing is fast. And we had great success with that bike. It was pretty good. But then, yeah, as you touched on, the Suzuki's bike started making funny noises. I destroy, you know what? You won't hear me complain about any loss. That I was mad at Mike Hill, not Mike Hill. I was mad at my team for the way they disrespected me when I got second, but I wasn't mad at Mike. And like I said, I didn't stuff him because I didn't mind him winning. And I only do that for my teammates and maybe some friends, like if Larry Pegram's there or something. You know, there's some guys that you give a bit more margin, you know, and there's some other guys who are like, you know, good luck for you. But I don't mind getting beat. I don't like it, and that's what made me who I was and who I did, who I am. But that was just a bad timing because racing started going down, money started going softer. Sure, for a little while, people were like, yeah, he's winning everything. Suzuki's winning everything, but then I'm like, what kind of racing is that? Who wants to show up and see that? And if you look at it, you can make a chart where racing went down. People turning up went down, money went down, and then we had the 2008 economy crash, where that's really the reason why I was surprised by my retirement, because I didn't want to. But Honda says, we're not going racing anymore. We're done. And I told myself, I'll race for like a tenth of what you paid me. Just keep my bike. I want to keep going. I want to see if I can, turn this thing around. And they're like, no, Miguel, we're printing on both sides of white paper. That's how much we're suffering in money. We can't afford it. But they had to do it, Neil, because Neil had another year in his contract. So that's why they weren't racing that one more year. But anyway, I mean, I saw him it started all at Barbara. I remember like it was yesterday. It's an open test. We're testing there. And they were leaving Morse code, I called it, rear slide, like slide a little break of pure asphalt, slide, pure asphalt, slide. I'm like, nobody can do that. Unless it's chattering, but it was not. You could see because that big right-hander. And I'm going to see. I'm not going to cry, but I could see and you could hear back then. If you guys know, you look YouTube, it's still up there. The bike goes, bah, 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 and I'm like, what the hell's that? And they went from being like not a really big concern of ours to being like unbeatable. And I'm thankful that Ben Spies came along and set the record straight. Ben Spies is a real, true, natural talent and went on to do a terrific career. He's such a great guy. And unfortunately, he got hurt with his shoulder and everything. But I liked him winning better than the other guy. But because the other guy, they were being cocky about it, and they knew they couldn't get caught. Now, for everybody listening to me, listen clearly and carefully. You're not allowed to have traction control in AMA. That was always been the rule. And you're not allowed to run a front wheel sensor. Now, why do I say that? Because AMA thought that the only way you could do traction control or power control, whatever you want to call it, is through the front wheel. The front wheel doesn't slip. So if the rear wheel is going faster than the front wheel, very simple to make traction control. So that's why they banned any sensors on the front wheel whatsoever. But they figured out a way to do it with GPS and mappings and Amar Bazaar, the guy was a genius with computers, and they kept with it, and they came up with an idea how to do it, and more importantly, the AMA couldn't prove they were doing it. They just took too long to let everybody do it, and by the time they did, again, back to the economy crash. I mean, we knew the Mitsubishi system that they were using was the number one. It was using GP and with lean bank sensors and everything. And me being with the guy that I am in racing for so long, a lot of guys came up to me and said, this is what they're doing, Miguel. I know, I saw it. I'm allowed to go over there. I looked at it, and I would tell the AMA, and they're like, we just can't prove it. We don't know how to do it. So, and they lost two big fights against Roger Edmonston and somebody else. They got sued. And I think they were a little gun shy to getting sued by Suzuki, because Suzuki said, if you can't prove it, that's slander towards our rider and our team. So they just went like this. And, 1, 2, 3 Suzuki, and it was bad for the show.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it too when I was on a K6, on a Suzuki K6 in WSMC, and there were some of the guys that were running the K7, and the K7 you could clearly see it in Willow turn 4 A and B. You could see the bike just goes like this and brings itself back, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, you could hear the engine cut off. And back then it was, it was very rudimentary, but it was still the Bazaz system.
And it was easy to point out, like you're saying. Like when I pointed it out the first time, everybody knew, like, what's going on, and everyone knew. And I said to them right there that day, as it went along, then you could tell at the end. There was no way you could tell, and then by then they stopped making the gas cutting and the backfires and all that stuff. And the bike, which is like today's bike, you don't hear a MotoGP bike doing that.
No.
And so they got it together and they got it going, but it just killed the sport. And Matt Miladin was racing for 10 years in America on good team, Fazber Faraci. He had 1 win in 10 years. Same bike that Goldberg used to win a lot, and Doug Chandler won a lot on it. A lot of guys won a lot on it. Ben did a great job on that bike. He had 1 win. And then when Suzuki's bike started doing that noise, he got 60 wins almost in a row. So, I mean, come on.
Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened once they got caught? They said, traction control doesn't help with the lap times. It helps managing the tire during the race. So when the tire goes away, it keeps the tire from sliding. So they were trying to play it down like it doesn't really help.
Man, I talked to journalists, and they would tell me that story. They would be like, it's power control, or it's for the tire and everything. I'm like, I don't care if it's for better grades in school. It's not legal. And don't you see there's only 3 guys winning on that bike? It killed Kawasaki. It killed Honda. And they couldn't afford it. If Honda couldn't do it, then Kawasaki sure couldn't do it. And Yamaha, they didn't want to do it until it was legal. And when they did great. And, a lot of guys won on that bike. But it was just so frustrating because it's kind of having, should I go there or not? Well, what the hell, let's go. It's like having a guy competing against girls, I mean, like, yeah, you're a top 10 and guys, but now you're kicking all the girls. But I don't care if you think you're a girl. You can't do that. You can be a girl if you want to, but you can't compete against them because it's not fair. So I went there.
So the fact that you went there,
they just made racing bad.
The fact that you went there,
made racing bad. That was one thing. And I didn't have a chance of winning. Neil didn't have a chance of winning. Nobody had a chance of winning unless they all broke down, and they never did. I always hope, I pray, I really do pray that one day somebody that was involved in that will come out and write a book or just come out and say, yes, this is what we did. I feel bad about it. I'm a pure racer, like maybe a Don Sakakura, somebody that's been in racing forever. And he's an artist. He's an artist. I'm not saying he knew. But let's say I'm using his name because I know him. I don't think. But Don is an artist racer. The man is a motorcycle through and through. The guy, when he cut himself, he would bleed oil. I mean, the guy is, and he's a craftsman of what he did with Yoshimura, a big part of their success. But if somebody like him or somebody else would know, and they'd be like, you know what, I need to get off my chest. This is something that we did. That'd be nice, because I am 100% convinced that that's exactly what happened. And my only consolation is when Ben Smith came around and started winning everything. And, because Ben was a good rider, a great rider, and it was fun to see him do that.
We had him on a podcast, by the way, Ben.
You did?
Yeah, we had him on a podcast. Yep. Yeah. So
I'll look it up.
I have a question for you. It's a little messed up question, right? But since he went there, why the hell not? So Josh Hayes, all right, I'm just taking the gloves off because, nothing over here is according to plan. Josh Hayes broke your all-time AMA record. Now, I have a way for you. It's a cheater way, but it's a way for you to get that record back. What if you go
I'm listening.
Okay, all right. What if you go? There's way more classes today than there were when you were racing there. So why don't you go to Moto America and tell them you identify as a woman and enter the Royal Enfield, the Royal Enfield races, and that way you can get your record back.
I don't know if I could pull it off. I'm just gonna need to get hair extension. Yeah, no, I don't think I need to do that. I think I could probably go there and beat those guys. I mean, the class that Josh won in there. I
Okay.
mean, Josh raced against us, and he's a good racer. He's a top racer. He's got 87 wins. That's amazing. But I can't fault him for keep racing and doing it the way he did it. And, I mean, obviously there are different times and there's different things. But it's hats off to him for doing it. I mean, here's a guy that did it by himself and got to be a fracture rider. So when he got a little bit less help, he still could do it. I never did it that way. I mean, my dad helped me a lot, and right away I become a fracture rider. So for me to grab a bike, put in the trailer, and go race, it's not going to happen. I'll just show up with mirrors and go, oh, that's not legal. I didn't know. I don't remember. But no, he did. He did good. And Josh is a good guy. I mean, he's a good guy. So I wish he hadn't broken it, but it was done in different time, different circumstances, and it is what it is. I wish you would have stopped at 86. A tie wasn't good enough for you, Josh.
It's the way he does it too is he's a racer through and through, and the guy's just an animal, and the fact that he did it on an R6 against the Ducati, which is basically a leader bike. It's just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's done a lot of racing. I mean, he's in the mid 40s, and like in 2008 when everything came down, maybe I should have kept going. Maybe do my own thing a little bit and try to, in a class like that, could be competitive. But there's a lot of risk. I mean, that's one thing that he did that you can't deny. I mean, he could have got really hurt.
He did. He did with his
get older.
He did with his leg, right?
Yeah. So that's how as they say, that's the way the egg roll.
And at the end of his superbike career, I think he sent Mladen back home, right?
Well, I remember when they made it, all legal and everything, and Larry Pegram came out, and he had a really good system, and Larry won. And he's got, I think, the biggest gap between superbike winners from, I think, the one time in Willow Springs to that time, and Larry won. And once people got the right, it made it easier. Like I said, when I go out with the new bikes, I know it's only a track day and all that stuff, but man, it's really hard to understand. It's 10, I'd say almost 10%, a little bit easier than it used to be with the bikes that we ran. It's just that the power is the same, but it delivers it so much better. I mean, I remember my knuckles, I didn't want to get dislocated when the bike would just hook up so hard. It's kind of hard to tell the mechanic I want less traction, but it helps quite a bit. And it's not sour grapes because I rode the Kawasaki, it was a great bike, and I rode the Honda. They lent me the bike, and I went out there and I did a bunch of laps. I mean, it's not perfect, some of the little things, the computers, but that's just a street bike. And it made track days a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And then like I said, when everybody got it, then it reset the whole thing. Matt wasn't dominating anymore. I mean, Larry could win. Josh won. A lot of guys. And then he just did the usual, I'm done. He just left. I remember one thing that was pretty funny about him. He, because I was, doing really well, Superbike and 600, winning both classes and all that stuff. So one year he showed up with a Suzuki 600. He goes, I'm signing up. He signed up and everything. And he goes out and he barely he barely made the top 10. I was looking at barely made the top 10. And then he parked the bike and he goes, I'm too big. I can too tall. I'm too big. This is doesn't work. Well, here comes Mr. Ben Spies. I think he's taller. Gets on the bike, kicks my ass. Goes out there. We race. We dice, and I won. He won, but he was like on fire. And then I'm going, hey, what about that guy? And that's why I was happy that Ben showed up and start winning. And to me, a person that's deserving winning at least is. Well, that sounded weird, but I mean, Ben, I thought was a true master of the craft of motorcycle racing. So that was fun for him.
Yeah,
and he could win on the 600 too.
Yeah,
which to my detriment, but still, he was a good racer. Him and I mean, you look at guys that race in 600. I raced against Doug Chandler, Scott Russell, Anthony Gobert, Ben Spies, Ben Bostrom, Eric Bostrom, Aaron Yates. I know I'm going to forget guys, but I mean, some of the top crop of the guys. I mean, we won a lot in 600. I'm like, yeah, against those guys. It's like I was riding, some sort of local race weekend, and people were trying to sell those bikes, and they were racing in there. And
everywhere, everywhere you went, you raced against some of the best racers in history, and you beat them. which makes you one of the best racers in history.
Yeah. Well, you looking seriously, just take 2 seconds and look at the entry grid in 1991 was my first Daytona win. I mean, the world champion was there. I can't remember his name. It was Bell or something. Carl Fogarty was there. I mean, that's back in the days when the top European with the money would come over and try to win. And guys that did the Alemán, they would show up and stuff. And then our guys were there. Everybody would show up, And that year, I mean, if I didn't have if they didn't throw out like 5 pace cars, I would have won by almost a minute. Every time I got the 25, 30-second lead, they threw out a pace car. And like anybody else, I'd look around going, okay, what's going on? Did the plane land accidentally in Daytona? Or, I mean, sometimes there might have been a crash there. I'm like, okay. But then after that, there was like, come on, man. We had such a big lead. I don't know if you remember, maybe you don't, but my pipe broke and it was making a lot of noise. And we were afraid we were going to get disqualified for having the bike too loud. So we made an extra pit stop, changed the pipe, which is kind of hard to do, a little hot. And the boys put a new pipe on and I went out and I still won by a bunch of seconds, So that year I was on fire in the bike. We had a good setup and working with Ray Plum too, another magician that's been around racing for entire life. And I mean, having Al, of course, my mechanic, but Ray back then was involved into the racing. And that was really something that was an attribute to the team. So it was fun. So we had some good racing.
How did that 2012 deal come about? I mean, electric.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the whole story about the electric bike. First of all, I'm motocrossing up in Milestone, and there's this really tight corner, and it's a big triple, and then another tight corner. Nobody's doing it. I'm doing it because, I love motocross, I love riding. And all my buddy and I do this word for word. I go, hey, guys, watch this. I go out, and I got one leg that's shorter than the other, and I had a motocross boot where I put a lift on. It was a little too big, but I was making width. So I jump, turn, I come on the tight corner, and I get on the throttle. It spins up too much. I try to short shift it so I can and just jump and land on the other side, which was no biggie. I did it a bunch of times. Well, I went to hit the shifter, got a neutral. Endo, into the third jump, push my left leg through my pelvis, breaking in 8 pieces. So go to the hospital. Doctor says, you're fine. Don't cross your legs. I come to my house. There's a doctor living across the street. I show him the x-ray. He goes, you need an operation tomorrow. And long story short, got the operation done on my leg, and I broke my wrist, cracked the bones. I had my wrist was broken, my hip, little concussion. And the phone rings. He goes, hey, Miguel, this is a Lightning Motorcycle. We want to go race the Le Mans for the World Championship. Do you want to do it? I'm like, and I was doing the calculation in my mind. I'm like, all right, I'm in a wheelchair right now. I haven't walked in a month because I have to let it heal. I go, I should be able to do this. It's an electric bike. How can this be? So I said yes. And by the time when I went to sign the contract with him, I had still a little soft cast on my wrist, and I was walking a little funny. And I told him I fell mountain biking. We life for the greater good, motorcycle racer. And like it turned out all okay. When I went to France, there was, the grid was sparse, but there was an electric bike there, and we were the fastest, and it was fun. We ran around and we won. So world champion, 2012, electric motorcycle, Le Mans. It was fun because I ran into all of my old friends of the Suzuki, Dominique Millien, the Suzuki French guys, and a lot of guys. And one guy, when I came into pits, he's like stopping me to say hi. He goes, you're going too fast. You can't go that fast with that bike. I got close to a 600 time around there, or something like that. And I was just trying to be safe because I was still a bit hurting. And but it was fun to see those guys and won the race. So I'm changing, right? Take my leather suit off in the garage. I changed all this, and the mechanic that was working on the electric bike, when I put my pants back on and everything, he goes, Miguel, he says, can I ask you about that scar? That looked pretty fresh. And I'm like, uh-oh. But we already raced and we won. So I'm like, well, here's what happened. And so I came clean. I told him that at the victory dinner. I said, yeah, this is what happened. And everything. He like shaking his head. I had the x-rays of the 8 screws holding my pelvis. Is like, all right, well, as long as you won. So that's pretty funny.
So what's your wildest memory of your racing days?
Well, it's all pretty wild, actually. I mean, it's the competition was stiff, and it was a gift to win every time I did. And sometimes I didn't win, and I still felt I did a great race. I mean, I think that when I look back at racing, well, there was a lot of good fun times when we had a lot of people, and people around, and
a lot of drunk,
racing, and
a lot of
the umbrella
drunk,
girl and
angry
all the
people.
things and all the big parties and everything. I mean, there was good times. I mean, like I said, I hit it right into the sweet spot of racing in America, and hopefully coming back soon. And but I like that. But for me as a racer, I guess to turn to your question is, as long as I felt like I did the most I could do on that motorcycle that day, um, I felt, I felt good. Usually I'd led to win, or at least being competitive at podium. But if I didn't, sometimes I'm like, well, can't win them all. If you do, you're probably cheating over the top, and racing is about pushing the limits. But I'm proud to say that, if I heard anything about somebody, like when I was racing the RZ 350, my mechanic, I mean, I had to like crack the whip. I'm like, do not cheat. Don't do this. Don't do that. And he just like, I'm going to do this and that. I mean, we pulled that thing out of cobwebs to go race the first time, to try road racing, see if I'd like it. And one time we got caught. He was using plastic boys and Marie's instead of steel. And his story was because he didn't want to mess a piston up when they cracked. And one time he used illegal fuel, and I wanted to kill him. I'm like, what are you doing? We were winning. We didn't use this, and I won, and now you're using it because you want to win more? I mean, he was just a tinker. And one time they said to open the engine, and there was so much mud caked in there that they had to hit it with a 2x4 and a hammer just to pull the engine out. And even Colin Fraser was there going like, I'm pretty sure this engine's never been opened in its stock. So we took advantage to make the bike actually better, putting new piston and rings into it. But like I said, I was allergic to that stuff. I either lose with honor or and win with dignity than do anything else than that.
How about off track? Any spicy stories, other racers?
Yeah, and that's called the vault, and you just keep that there. And I got some good friends, and I got some great stories, and the funny thing is that some of them I can tell. So when me and Ben Bostrom and Eric, we were all good friends. We've always been good friends. We used to go motocross together, and Anthony Goldberg would be with us. And this is something I did, I think is worth mentioning. Anthony had a bit of a drinking problem. He would overdo it compared to all of us. And I was like, man, Anthony, just keep it on the down low during the racing season, because he would get trouble and sometimes with pot, whatever. I'm like, man, stop it for the summer, race, do your thing. And then nobody cares what you drink during the winter, just stay out of prison, stay out of jail, stay out of problems. And I always try to help him. And you got to understand, when I was trying to help Anthony and holding him by the neck and laughing with him and everything, I'm like, man, I might be shooting myself in the foot if this guy, what he's doing is slowing him down. Well, then I'm never going to beat this guy again, because he was a hell of a racer. He was hard to beat. And we had great races. But I thought, as a human being, it was more important for me to try to save a human being than save my winning position. Like I'll figure a way to beat him somehow, push harder, do something. And when he did clean up, he had trouble racing, actually. It was kind of a weird thing where he had, and I don't know anything about addiction that badly, but he definitely has a lot of struggles. But we try to help him. But we go motocrossing together, and we just rode into each other and everything. It was pretty funny. And Anthony would go out, and we'd be like, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we're going out to motocross at Gorman. All right. We'd come in late. Anthony would come in the latest, 3 a.m., and had trouble using the washroom facilities. And he did a bunch of weird stuff, and he would call his girlfriend, and he would be yelling and then laughing and everything. And we're like, Andy, shut up, for the love of God, So I guess part of that story is that, and I'm sure everybody knew about Anthony's situation. I hope he's doing great today and good. I don't know. I don't want to hear anything, but I did my part. I try to help him. And we're all a good bunch of people. We're all good friends, and we hung out. And we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a high pressure profession. This is not a profession where you can coast. You always have to show a performance, and that puts a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah,
that's
that reminds me, when I was sitting on my couch in 2009, and this is true. I was watching TV and I was like this, like ready to pounce. I'm waiting for that phone call. I'm gonna go race. We can still do, And I took a breath and I took an exhale and I went, and I actually slowed down, being like, okay, it's finished. Let's relax. It took me a year to realize that I was not going to race, and that I could actually exhale and relax, and without knowing it, you're like, you're just ready to go all the time, and that's how you're always thinking of the bike. I want to do this, that, and I got a good story about Colin, by the way, but I'm not going to tell it. But anyway, Colin, he's a good friend of mine too. I mean, actually, there's a good story here. We're playing golf in New Hampshire. Me and his wife and Colin, we're all just playing a little golf before the race weekend, and this guy hits a golf ball into us, and I'm like, "What the hell was that for?" So and then he does it again. So I'm like, "Well, that doesn't work," So I confront the guy. I say, "Hey, what's your problem?" He goes, "Well, you're driving a car where you're not allowed to drive it." So I'm like, "Well, you're going to hit me with a golf ball and hurt me because you don't like where I'm driving the golf cart?" And then I go and berate him because I want to get in a fight now. I'm like, "Okay, let's just do this. Because I'm really mad about it, and I'm using expletive and everything." He goes, "I don't think that's good language you use in front of a lady." And I looked at him and looked at her, and she went like this, and I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah, you!" And it nothing came of it. But it was funny because Colin was laughing. He was like, "Man, you're nuts." And I'm like, "Well, try to hit a golf ball on me. I mean, come on. You can't do that, especially when you admit you did it on purpose." So, like I said, we all hang out. The guys that you see that you like are really good people. They're fun guys to be around.
Yeah, they are. The actual interview we did with Colin, we were drinking shots every time he said an explicit.
Yeah.
So the quality of the interview declined around the hour and a half that we talked.
Oh, that's how you're looking at it. It might have got better, a little bit looser.
We did. Yeah, we did.
One time it was when we were out again, Goldberg, then me and everything. We're at the Daytona testing. And man, we barely made it back to our hotels. It was hilarious. But Colin had a flight to Australia that morning. We showed up. His dad's looked like, "Look what we found." He's like, "Oh my God. All right, thanks for it. All right, guys." And we just ran around, and so we did have a lot of fun, and nobody got seriously hurt.
That's great. Do you want to talk about more contemporary days, Gal?
I have a question. Yeah, I was going to ask a bunch of questions on the Harley Davidson Superbike in '94, but do we still have time, or are we? Yeah, okay. Well, we still have time. So
real quick. Let's get it real quick.
All right, the Harley Davidson. How do you like racing that? You think Harley would ever go back and make another one? What did they learn from it?
Well, I hope so. I think they learned a lot, and I'd love to see them try again. That'd be great. They're a great bunch of people. When I signed with them, I had a little bit of instant regret because they couldn't start the motorcycle. But and we had all the problems that we had. There was, but we went from that to, Brainerd. If I had a pit board and I would have known I was pulling away from the guys, I would have probably backed it down just a hair, because I was really on Brian's ragged edge. That's why I rode off the track. But I went from 12th and then came back up to second place. And I got beaten by two guys who I'd never hear from, Troy Corser and Jamie James. I just did a little slide come out the chicane, and they both stuck by me. And I was like, "Oh my God, how lucky is that?" And it turned out I did the right thing because I started pushing again to try to catch Colin because I thought he was slowing down too much because he had it in the bag, but turned out he had a transmission problem. So I would thought, if I can get close enough, I could sneak him and maybe win this thing. I should have probably settled for second, but who does that? And so anyway, that was a great race. Mid-Ohio, the shifter fell off. The bike was actually perfect. Somebody forgot to safety wire the bolts. And I'm leading Pascal Picot, and we're having a great race. I'm riding my, off. And I thought there was my best chance to win. Not Brainer with the big straight, but the thing I didn't count on is number 1 and number 2 corner. They're such difficult corners, but I could go around there wide open on the Harley, and that would just pass everybody outside. Dirt tracking through there. I almost stayed with them. So there was always a part of me that wanted to stay there because the money was pretty close to Honda. But I was like, man, I don't know. If I sign again and they can't make this bike work on every weekend, I'm really going to, And there was only one class, whereas the Honda was 2 class. And it turned out the bike, they did a great job. I mean, Doug Chandler got on it and Pascal Picot, and they all had some good races. I love the chassis of that bike. I mean, I could brake deeper than anything. Well, mine because my bike was slow and heavy. But still, it handled great. I braked really deep. I mean, a good story is we can ask Steve Scheibe. He's a good guy, great guy. We motocrossed together and everything. He hung out. He's a really good guy. Anyway, at Laguna Seca, I did some pretty good laps on that bike, the old bike. The next year, people don't understand. You can ask Steve, and he'll tell you. The bike was like 20 pounds lighter and 30 more horsepower. It was like unbelievable what they did in that off season. So at the Laguna Seca, I'm out there riding, and I said the time the year before, 94. In 95, I think it was Doug. And he goes around there laps. And Doug Chandler is the king of Laguna Seca. He was so hard to beat there. And he comes in the pits and he goes, "What time did Miguel do here last year?" And he goes, Steve shows him, and Doug Chandler goes, "Man, he really wanted it, didn't he?" And that was another compliment. That's like the John Kaczynski thing. You hear these things and like, oh my God, that's a big compliment to me, Anyway, so that's my Harley Davidson story. It was really cool. And then, the thing that hurts a little bit, you find out some people cheat. Like in 600, they use the wrong magnesium wheels instead of using the steel, the OEM wheels. And when you find that out, you're like, well, how come nobody at Dunlop spilled the beans, Anyway, but and then you lose the championship. You don't lose just the race. You lose the championship. You're like, okay. But, it's not it is what it is. Those are the little things. The other thing was bigger. I think with Suzuki that was bad for the sport. It was bad for everybody. But anyway, there you go.
All right, MotoGP predictions.
I think. Well, I mean, obviously, Mark's going to be the big part of it. If Mark can stop himself from being Mark, as far as like trying to not just win, but destroy everybody by 20 seconds, or maybe if he gets a really good setup, if he can just not race against his ghost and just raise the competition and make sure he gets more points than other, I think he's going to win it. But I think that Battistini, all those guys over there right now, the current world champion and Martinez, they're going to put up a great fight. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be some serious good racing. Let's see what KTM comes up with too also. And Honda is not laying down. They're stepping up their game. So it'd be ironic if they got a bike working for those guys, and they come back and win. So I'm just I watch every one of them. I love it, and looking forward to the new season. Same thing with Supercross, which is just down the road in Anaheim coming up.
Did you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Honda, I know what's wrong. Let me help you," or are you still collaborating with them?
Well, I'm not gonna brag too much. No, I'm going to. But when I was there, the bikes were pretty good. The 600 bike that they used, before they had that 600 Honda, the stock bike that was from our Formula Extreme bike that was developed here in America. They did a lot of the stuff we did here was testing. Everything racing is testing for something better, and so we did that. And the super bikes were pretty good at that time, and I was a big part of that. So, yeah, sure. I think maybe. I don't know. You only remember the good stuff. That's one thing I learned about 24-hour racing when I did 24 hours, and I was the fastest guy and would win, and I won some races. And man, getting up at 2 a.m. to go, full throttle, freezing rain at Le Mans or Spa, you start saying to yourself, "What am I doing here?" But if you take But this is serious. If you take a year or 2 years off and they say, "Miguel, you want to do it 24 hours?" Well, yeah. Then you show up at the 24 hours and 2 a.m. rolls around again, or 3 a.m. They wake you up from a sound sleep from 20 minutes you have from the other guy. And you go out in the darkness and you smell the oil everywhere. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So my point to that story is you always remember that I do. You always remember the good things. So it'd be, I don't know.
Well, you still have the fire. Obviously, talking to you, you still have the fire, and you have the physical fitness as well, judging by your 100-mile rides that you post on Instagram. And I was like, is this guy crazy? I mean, you go Red Rock, you go Blue Diamond, you go back Summerlin, and I was like 100 miles in like 6 hours. Come on, that's insane.
Yeah, I did my record this year, 152 miles, 9 hours and 48 minutes sitting on the bicycle seat there. That was fun. I figured, what the hell, I always wanted to do a long one, so did it.
Okay, I got the last question because we're really running over, and that's a self-serving question. What's the best place to eat in Las Vegas?
In Summerlin, if you like Italian, North Italia is a really good restaurant. Pasta alla vodka, fantastic. For steak, Echo and Rig, you got some really good steaks, a nice ambiance there.
Oh my God, we got reservation for tonight.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And Santabello's, which is a chain restaurant, you got the Divialo pizza, but add extra prosciutto on the machine. They cut it and they put it on the pizza. Fantastic pizza. Those are the spots. And Yard House, of course. Get a half-yard beer and have the mac and cheese. It is very good. You'll see me there.
Have you been to?
Tonight we're going to Tottori to go see the Christmas parade. So taking the family there.
If you like Italian, have you been to my mother's house in Sun City?
No, I have not.
Okay,
Wow.
Google it. It's
Is that a
this.
local business?
It's a local business. It's this guy that's
I
like
think I did. I went there.
an old mobster that just sings all those Sinatra songs and tells Sinatra stories and
Yeah,
yeah.
Then we went there. We had dinner there because my girlfriend work and we got seminars there. She work, bounces around and does shows and stuff and for work. And we went there. Yeah, there was a guy singing and everything. It's awesome. It's good stuff. Yeah, there's a lot to be discovered in Vegas. There's more than just gambling and stuff. There's Red Rock, like you said. There's just cycling, mountain riding, mountain biking is terrific out here too. So that's why I'm here. I came here to save some money from taxes in Canada and fell in love with the place, and I'm still here today.
Yeah. What was the restaurant you and I went to when we had the track?
We went to Echo and Rig.
Okay, that's what I thought. Very good place.
Yeah. We have reservations for tonight, so if you jump in the car, you can get here.
That's right.
Or just drive to Burbank and grab a plane, which is faster.
Yeah, Burbank. I lived there for a little while. It was fun.
Yeah, there's no flights anywhere out of you can't go anywhere without connecting out of Burbank.
Yes.
I prefer Miami a lot more. You can go everywhere from there, but over here, very difficult. You have to go to LAX.
Well, that's the beauty of Vegas. The McCarran Airport. I refuse to call it Harry Reid, but it's close, and you can go anywhere from there. It's pretty fun.
That Terminal 4. Yeah, Terminal 4 is pretty nice.
Huh?
Terminal 4 is pretty nice.
Yep. I'm trying to think of a local. We almost went there yesterday. Mark Ritchie. Mark Ritchie is beside the John Cutters on Foothill and Charleston. A little hole in the wall. It's a New York pasta place. I mean, waitress is totally from New York and everything, and it's great food. And I mean, you can go in there and out and under $100, no problem with 4. I mean, it's great food. Mark Ritchie, yeah, Mark Ritchie.
Nice. We'll try it.
There you go.
All right, Nabil, any more questions?
All right. World Superbike. So we haven't talked at all about that. And I mean, Ducati seems to have technically found something and they're dominating everywhere. But what are your predictions for coming year?
Man, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see Jonathan Ray on the Yamaha, right? So I think it's going to be some fantastic racing. Hopefully he adapts to it. I'm sure he will. He's a talent, such a guy. And Rogu, whatever his name is, I have trouble pronouncing. I mean,
Rastakioglu.
Yes, thank you. I know, I love it. It's good racing. And yeah, of course the Ducatis, and it's going to be very interesting. But I'm sorry to say, I think MotoGP obviously is going to be, especially with Mark with doing that big move, and it's going to be very. It's going to be. I mean, 2024 is promising to be a hell of a year.
Yeah. I didn't quite understand.
Tomac coming back in Supercross too, and motocross. Eli Tomac. So that's another big story. Again, Jed Lawrence, and it's good time to be a couch sportsman watching motorcycle racing.
They even come up with a ton of new models for 2024. The manufacturers. We did an episode of that where Rennie just broke down like 20, 30 bikes for us. But between racing and the new models, motorcycles are 2024 is going to be a really good year.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking. I got some stuff more on the side. I'm not sure if I could say it, so I'm not going to say it. But I was talking to a lot of important people, and I said, "Listen, look at all these little razors and electric bike. What I think is good about the electric bike is you see a lot of kids now riding those electric bikes. Well, guess what? When they grow up and get bigger, like, hey, why don't I try a real bike?" So I really see a renaissance coming in for the motorcycle. I mean, there's nothing better for freedom of the mind and the body to ride a motorcycle. You got to learn how to do it right. You got to learn how to be able to maneuver. You got to know how to look around. There is responsibility to the more freedom you have, the more responsibility you need. It's like rock climbing. You got to know what you're doing. If you're not, it's kind of a problem, big time. So, but I think there's a big renaissance motorcycle coming up. Sales are going to hopefully be coming back up, and it's all going to go the right way. And hopefully I can get involved somehow someday into racing again. I'd love to commentate on the races. I'd love to be somebody would have like what Ben Spees put together. They put together around him, and something like that would come along. Maybe I'd love to be part of it. And if I'm not, then I'll just watch it and do like everybody else, critique it.
Start a
Your
YouTube.
experience should be great at it. But I want to write down this. So this was epic. You said the more responsibility, the more freedom you have, the more responsibility you have. That's a saying for the ages, and that goes really outside of motorcycling too.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big believer in that, and I want, if possible, if everybody can have the freedoms that we enjoyed as kids growing up. I mean, riding bicycle without a helmet, no problem. Jumping, doing this. I used to have a shotgun, and then my dad showed me how to use it. And I was a little kid. I had to make sure I didn't hit the nose into the dirt, but I had that freedom because I took the responsibility. How my dad taught it to me, and then never had a problem. Never had a problem with guns. Never had a problem with motorcycles, snowmobiles, and so on and so forth. So, and like I was saying, is I just want the kids today to be able to have that. I mean, I want them to be educated, and then do it right and enjoy it. Because if you do it, then there's nothing better for the soul.
Yeah. I mean, in Florida, we ride without helmets. It's optional.
Yeah, we never rode
with helmets. And then I saw the impact and the issues, and I'm like, I was crazy. Put a helmet on, even if you're not required to.
Yeah, and that's a choice. That's beautiful. I mean, when I see guys riding without a helmet, the first thing I think is like, how hard is on your ear? I hope you got earplugs in there because the wind noise is crazy. And I like to ride my little 50 scooter sometimes because you don't have to wear a helmet either, and it's 50 cc under the speed limit. And I don't use it to go down to the strip, but I'll use it around Summerlin if I go to Mark Ritchie's or DeMarco's also on Charles. I mean, the little places are not too far where I can go around and make eye contact with people and get around. Sometimes I'll do that. It's, why not? It's fun.
Yeah. You still do track days, road racing?
I would when people call me and they have a bike and whatever, or if I can, they say we really want to do this, then like I said, I call Honda and they lend me a motorcycle. They were very gracious with that. I love that Fireblade. I think it was a Fireblade, not too sure, but it was, a fantastic handling machine. Did the video with that. And this Kawasaki was the same. I mean, Kawasaki was really, really, very gracious to me too, and they lent me a great 750. And like I said, that's where I discovered going, wow, it's a little bit easier doing this with this thing. But at that level,
right?
Race weekend, I don't know you go to the track day weekend, and people don't take lap times. I'm like, why are you guys here? Take some lap times. I mean, let's see who's doing what. It's fun. You can get the racer onto a track day, but you can't get the racing out of the track guy. So anyway, that was fun. I enjoyed it.
No, but it's a good learning tool. I don't know how in business we measure everything, right? To be able to make it better. Otherwise, you don't know if it's better. So I don't know how you apply something new that you've learned on a turn or do something different. Then how do you know if it's better or not unless you're tracking your lap time? Yeah. I'm a big believer in performance measurements.
No, exactly. Absolutely. And it's fun, I mean, obviously it can lead to, crashes because you start pushing more, you want to be faster than your friend. I don't have that problem. That's their problem. But why not? Like you said, if you do a little bit of modification, and I mean, there was a friend of mine, Jack Pfeiffer, still a friend of mine, at Daytona. I was watching him riding around in the early 90s, and I looked at his bike and I was like, man, what the? So I went over to his pit and I jumped on the bike and I dialed the suspension, and he went from 19th to 5th fastest. But then he kept coming around like, can you help me with this? And I'm like, dude, no, I got my own work I got to do. I did that. Good luck, keep it going. And he actually finished 4th at the Daytona 200, the year that me, Ben, and Curtis, I think it was us, or was it Nikki? Honda got the full podium, and Jack Pfeiffer got 4th on his own, pure privateer. So that was a hell of an accomplishment for him. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to bigger, better things. I mean, he kept racing and did a lot of winning, on the West Coast. And he's a good guy. But that one day, that's my point. I went over there and helped him, and just dropped almost a second and a half a lap. So you gotta keep the lap times on.
Yeah,
I like to help.
So what would be your advice for track riders, in general, what to focus on, what to get better at?
Just the trail brake riding, try to make your corner speed a little bit better. But, again, you got to set up the bike for that. Don't be afraid to change the bike. Change the bike. If it's bad, so what? You missed a couple of laps or maybe a session, come back, change it back. Have fun with it. Why not do that? And once you hit something that you feel real comfortable, you're going fast and you're happy, then good. Then just keep pushing that. Put new tires on, get the tire warmers, try to maybe a little bit different line, try something. That's why if you do lap times, like you said, you could just try changing your line a little bit, apexing a little later or a little sooner, or carry more speed or brake a little harder and see if you go faster, And I think it's just something that keeps you coming back. And I think that's the way to do it.
Don't be
And
afraid
if
of
you're really
trying.
good, and if you're really good and really fast, do not race on the streets. Sign up, get a local license, do a local race, get your license, and have fun. Because it's just as much fun racing on the weekend that it is doing a track day.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Terrific. Gal, anything else?
No, I think we got it. I think
Well, you got it.
we
And plus,
got
plus, plus.
plus. And
Well,
I was
we
going to
could make
say
this 6 hours, but nobody has. You
no.
don't have the time one.
I was going to say the beauty of today's technology is that everybody can go on the internet and say what they want to say, and you obviously have a lot to say. So I suggest maybe you be more active on YouTube. Maybe start a YouTube channel.
I tried. Well, I like to do a podcast like you guys do, something like do my own commentating on the MotoGP, because there's something sometimes there's some racing where I got to just like turn the volume down because it makes me want to have a brain explode, like Scanners in the movie. But and I think I could do a real good job and bring a lot of different perspective to it, a little bit of color commentating. But we'll see. Hopefully the future is going to be brighter and we can do some stuff like that and just keep the sport going, keep getting bigger, better.
Okay.
That could be an interesting idea if you broadcasted the race while talking over the comments. So mute the comments from the commentators and do your own commentary. Because I think that would be a lot more fun, a lot more interesting, and a lot more.
Well, you can have commentator like it should be a commentator race or debate. You can listen to the TV one and have and the earphone on this one and go, oh, hey, he said this, he said that, and be kind of you can get a different perspective on it. Hey, I watch TV on my phone and I watch my TV, I'm like multitasking here. Boom, boom, boom.
You should try that. That could be a lot of fun. Gal staff meeting.
After we're done. Okay, staff meeting. Thank you guys for listening. There was another episode of Edge Grip Podcast, episode number 17, with the legendary number 17, Miguel Duhamel or Duhamel, and just call him God.
No, one lower.